Welcome to the Dream Life is Real Life podcast with your host, Hannah Hermanson, bringing you real life stories of people who realized their dreams to educate and inspire you to create your legacy of abundance now.
You guys, today I am so excited to introduce our guest, Jules Schroeder. Ranked by Inc. magazine as one of the top 27 female entrepreneurs changing the world in 2017 and top 40 millennials to follow in 2018, Jules founded her six-figure company at 18 and her first seven-figure company at 22. She is most recently the founder of Unconventional Life, which operates a popular podcast on the Forbes on the Forbes Under 30 and online content and community hub, and biannual international business accelerators. At 28, Jules is leading a movement to empower millennials to create a life by their own design by learning from successful leaders who have left behind the 9-to-5 for a life they love. Welcome to the show, Jules.
Thank you. So good to be here. Hello, everyone. Thank you for that introduction. I find introductions are always so fun because you just hear like the whole snapshot of who a person is, and it's like, well, who are they really?
Yeah, and so, as the listener, you get to sit and bask in all the things you've accomplished and those impressive numbers.
Yeah, but it's good to be here, and I can definitely, resonate a lot with your audience. And when I heard what you were doing, I was, a full yes to being here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And ever since, I've started listening to your podcast and following your content, I know that your story is really powerful. And just briefly mentioned here, you started your first company at the age of 18. And here we are almost 10 years later. And I know the what or the how of, the work that you do and how you earn money has changed a lot. So can you just give listeners a little bit of the story of what you've moved through in the last 10 years as an entrepreneur as far as your business model?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing I'll say is that, I found my path to be nonlinear. And, even when I was graduating college in 2011, so, I grew up, my dad worked Wall Street in New York City, oldest of 5. And I very much had this mentality. It was just like, like a lot of us, go to school, get good grades, get a good job, get a better job. And then eventually, you die, you retire and then you die. And so, when I first got started on the path, there really weren't many examples, and even this conversation that you could have alignment and purpose and passion, and that those could be ingredients in how you earned your living or made money. Like there was no landscape for that. And I remember, when I was graduating, my dad, we fought tooth and nail. He was just couldn't believe that I wasn't going to get a conventional job. And, ironically enough, so I started my business journey knocking on doors. My first company was a house painting company. So when I was 18, I was in an economics class and a clipboard got passed around. It was, you want to make a bunch of money this summer, go ahead and write your name and number down. And so I did. And it turned out they were teaching college students how to have their own business. And the vehicle for that was house painting. And I was like, well, painting is not sexy. I'm not really interested in house painting. However, I wanted to learn. And so I got really good and really efficient at knocking on doors and getting random strangers to give me their name and number. And ended up booking about $150,000 worth of work in about 2 months. And, broke all these different records, and producing the paint. It was another story. I wasn't so good at that. I didn't actually paint myself. We oversprayed cars and put ladders to windows. And that was a whole another experience learning on the delivery. I'm sure a lot of people can relate with that. Selling one thing, but fulfilling the service is another piece. But from there, I realized a lot of the nuts and bolts of business, and I got asked to come back, the following year to teach other college students what I did, and ended up, teaching about 7 students and had almost 112 different people working through our network. And we did close to $700,000 that year. And so it was a cool trajectory to see the evolution. But then, I realized it was, not the end all be all. But I think the most important thing I want to say about that was really realizing for the first time, I got to actually experience the success that I felt inside of me. And I think some of us might be able to relate to this. It's like this knowing that there's more living in you, and you look at your external circumstances, and maybe right now it's the clients that you have or the clients you wish you had, or maybe you're making like $5,000 a month right now, but you want to have those, consistent 10 grand months. But it's like, for some reason, the internal isn't syncing up with the external. And it was the first time that I actually felt like, wow, yeah, like I can do this. Like there was some tangible proof that had me be a yes to keep going. And even though it wasn't paid, obviously wasn't my end all, it still gave me those wins on the board to actually say, yeah, okay, if I can do this, then what's the next thing I can do? And I think so often too, we don't even acknowledge the wins that we create on our own board. And said another way, we're so moving to that next hurdle. We get to like $5,000 and we're like, oh, I'm still not making enough. Or it's like, I still don't have this consistency, or I still don't feel like I have that internal and external congruency. But when you actually just stop and press the pause button, and this is for anyone that's listening to this right now, it's actually just acknowledge where you are and really celebrate your wins. I've found in my own life that's given me the confidence and almost flexing that muscle to be like, yeah, okay, even though I have no idea how house painting, for example, in that moment is going to relate to my bigger end all purpose, it still feels like a dart to throw. And it also feels like a piece of the puzzle. And if I trust that next step will show up, like what will happen after that? And so,
so that was, I just want to build on what you're saying, because I'm totally resonating. And I think we also miss it when it's not the way we thought it was supposed to be, or exactly the way we expected it to be. So like you were building a 6-figure business painting or selling painting for homes. And I recently had an experience. I've always had this silly vision of like, I want to like party on a yacht. Like I have no desire to own a yacht or anything like that, but like, I just want to be invited to like a fancy yacht party, whatever, random visualization thing that has crossed my mind for years. And recently I was in Belize and I was on a party boat, and I was saying to my fiance, I was like, man, this is like exactly how I thought it would be, but like, I don't really know these people, like we just kind of got here randomly. And he was like, so like we're on a boat, we're on a party boat. And I was like, right, like I was gonna miss it, like that moment I was gonna miss because I thought it was supposed to happen a different way. So I think that there's lots of examples that we could all probably relate to, and it's like, oh wait, but like I am building a business, and like these are dreams that I had. So yeah, taking those moments to celebrate and give yourself some perspective, I think is so
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I was just going to say, and even what you're saying too, it's like, yeah, being committed to something with totally the unattachment of how it shows up also creates that energetic space to really allow the thing that you really, really want to be there, even though it's not in that exact form as how you envisioned it. So yeah, totally agree with you on that.
So, okay. House painting at 18 was not your end all be all. So, once you had that taste, where did you turn?
Yeah. So I moved from house painting. I've also, another thing to say is I've also been really multi-passionate. So I'm also an artist, I'm a musician, a creator. And so simultaneously, like I threw the dart, I was like, okay, I got some business experience, got some wins. But then it was like my creative side was like, hungry and starving. And so then I was like, I'm going to go into the music industry, and then started booking bands. And, I really loved going to live shows at the time. So I was like, I'm going to figure out how to get guest listed on every show that I want to get on, and became more of like a journalist communication style. And somewhere amongst that, I was going to a lot of music festivals, and I saw a girl with a feather in her hair. And this was back in 2011. So for all my ladies listening to this, if you remember that trend of girls wearing feathers in their hair, the feather hair extensions, I was one of the first to actually start that trend out of Colorado. And so I decided to go to my local fly fishing shop, figured out you could take these long hair feathers, dye them, and it became quite popular. And so a friend of mine said, well, why don't you, instead of doing birthday parties around town in Boulder, Colorado, why don't you put that online? And I was like, I don't know anything about the internet. This is like 2011. So like, This isn't the era of like infinite podcasts speaking about online businesses and courses. It was kind of like more of a frontier. And so
we were just sharing like bumper stickers on each other's Facebook walls. And, like, emailing.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And so I, Googled how to create a website, found like there was no Squarespace either. So I found some little like website builder in a box situation, and put up my first website. And literally, I remember the next day I woke up that morning and I had my first notification from PayPal for exactly $22.13 saying that someone had bought my feather package. A hair salon had bought feathers to sell to their client. And I was like, holy shit, you can like make money when you sleep. Like, this is like the best thing ever. And I started to realize that you could make money on the internet. And I remember I felt like I was doing such a good job. Like, I bumped our ad budget up to $5 a day and was just like, I was like going for it. But nonetheless, it became huge. And just to give some context, like, I could buy an individual feather from the fly fishing shop. You could get a package of almost 200 for $33. In high season, salons would sell one feather to clients for $25. So it was just like massive margins. And I remember my dad, I'm graduating college, here we go again. And he's like, so you're not going to get a job and you're going to sell hair feathers to salons to support yourself. And I was like, yeah. And he was just like, are you crazy? And like, this, I think, is also a relatable part is we have a vision, us as entrepreneurs, as creators, and oftentimes our friends, our family, our environment doesn't share the same vision, or it doesn't fit in their wisdom, structures. And so it's just like, I'm like, yeah, Dad, I'm not going to go get a job and I'm going to sell hair feathers on the internet. He thinks I'm like destroying my life and being totally, risky, etc. But that was the path that I had. And ironically enough, 3 months later, my dad
he had a hair feather.
New York City.
Please tell me your dad got extensions.
No, he didn't get the extensions. But his boss walked in one day and had a hair feather in. And he was like, whose feather is that? And it was fly feathers. And so it was the validation of like, okay, wow, my daughter is actually onto something. And so anyways, flash forward, I had the feather business. Then I got into Amazon book publishing after that. We figured out how to make books bestsellers on Amazon in 2012. Before that was a thing, sold the algorithm, did a 7-figure launch for digital products. And then, had a 25-person team at the age of 24. And then from there, like, dealt with a business partner embezzlement, and then ended up having a crazy near-death experience years ago. And that actually switched me into this trajectory where I am now. But it's been quite a ride of a lot of different expressions, to say the least.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I love this. So I've heard your story in a few different places, and this was not the story I was expecting. And, it's just so interesting when you really ask people, like, where are you coming from and how did this come to be? And today, for whatever reason, your near-death experience and the embezzlement is just a little aside to your experience. But I think it is important, to be in a place where these lessons are so near and clear to you that you had to overcome people doubting you or thinking you were crazy and just kind of follow that creativity. And it helped that you were having success and you saw the sales coming when you were 18, and the feathers were a simple business model that spread quickly. But take us a little bit into, the times when those numbers weren't so obvious, or it wasn't so like, it's working, Dad. And how for 10 years stayed committed to your path.
Yeah, totally. So the entrepreneurship journey, I'm sure a lot of your listeners might already know this, but if you haven't experienced it yet, is definitely one of the biggest roller coaster rides and the longest roller coaster rides that you can embark on. And it's also, even through all of the success and all those other pieces, my mindset and my mental chatter, I don't know if it's ever really stopped. And I think it's also been why I've been so committed to my own personal development journey as well. But I like to say I either border the line between being totally batshit crazy or really onto something, where I'm either saying I'm oh my God, this is the most ridiculous thing ever. There's no way that this will work. There's no way that I could possibly make it happen. Or then simultaneously really onto the next big thing. And that's just been something, in general, the fear and the am I enough? Is this good? Does anyone think this is valuable? I still am challenged by those things. I remember even we just did our largest Unconventional Life event in Bali to date. We had 108, entrepreneurs, creatives, artists, and thought leaders for this 5-day business accelerator. And I just remember the day before it's coming, we've oversold the event by 15 spots. And I'm just can I actually do this? Do I really have something valuable to say? And it's really, that stuff still comes up for me. And so just wanting to humanize our journey. And I think for any really like successful person. Like I like to say the amount of success you hear on one side, there is an equal and opposite amount of challenge and failure that gets carved on the other side. And it's directly proportionate. So like small success, small failure, bigger success, bigger failure. And I really do feel like the failure, like the low, actually carves the cup for the high on the other side. And so to be specific, it was 2014, one of these moments, and I was 8 months into dealing with an embezzlement. So I had a business partner embezzle $200,000 worth of debt, went into debt overnight, was dating my other business partner, simultaneously had been going through like a string of physical health problems. I had 6 concussions and was having brain fogs every day. And so after like 8 months of like dealing with the DA, trying to pay back clients, unraveling a 24-person team, and then like trying to work like 18 hours a day to make more money to fix more problems, I finally just like had this moment. I was like this isn't working. Like it was like kind of like when you feel like you hit rock bottom. I think us as entrepreneurs, a lot of time we're so resilient. Like our capacity for rock bottom is greater than I think so many people. They're like, it's rock bottom.
No, this is it. Wait, maybe this is it.
It's like, no, it's like I'm too far in. Like I got to keep going, and that's how it was. And like I had all that success, but at 24, like I literally started draining all of my savings and like going through this embezzlement. And it wasn't even just the embezzlement, but it was like every area I felt like was under fire, like my romantic area, my health, like my relationships with my family, like all of it. Like it's like when it rains, it pours. And I had this moment and literally like had no money left in my savings, was like having these brain fogs 5 or 6 times a day. And I just remember like actually picking up the phone and doing what any 24-year-old would do. And I like actually called my dad and I was like, Dad, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I actually, like, I feel like I had so much pride. I was like, I don't know how to get out of this. And I had never asked my dad for help before. 1, because I really valued being independent so much. And 2, I also just was like, had all that success that it kind of went to like I can't go, like it almost felt like it was beneath me at the time for some reason. And anyways, so I did. And to actually be able to like give myself space, my dad was like, well, what if, we gave you a loan and you had terms and you paid it back? And what if you actually, instead of doing more, what if you paused and just did less and actually took the time to heal, to create some space and to feel? And in my head, I was like, that's the most counterintuitive advice ever. Like shit is like hitting the fan. Why would I stop? Why would I pause? I was like, if anything, like I need to keep going. And I ended up actually taking the loan. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it was the first time where I actually pivoted from creating success on more of a conventional terms, where I felt like I was living really for what more of this like conventional or this Instagrammable version of success was, from like the photos to like the fancy, like the relationships to the status to how things seem, to actually coming into more of alignment and more of listening to my own instinct and intuition and my own inner wisdom. And I created this 60-day game for 2 months. I actually told all of my other business partners, all of these clients, like for 2 months, I'm actually going to do nothing. And my only goal in this 60 days was to actually start to hear myself and for the first time really discern what is truly an aligned 10 out of 10 yes. I call it like a full-bodied yes, and what's just a no. And if I really told the truth to myself, I was spending most of my time doing things that were like 4s or 5s or 6s or 7s, and like taking clients that I didn't want to take, saying yes to things because I was afraid there wouldn't be an opportunity coming, that I needed to make more money there. And my whole life was being run like on an unconscious level out of nothing that actually not only didn't bring me joy, but that actually was in alignment. And so by actually saying no, it gave me the space to start to hear that full-bodied yes. And for those hearing this, I mean, you guys could even try this out for a week of like just actually creating, that full-bodied yes. I call it like I don't know if I can swear, so I'll just call it the hell yes. The hell yes, for example, it's that instinct when someone's like, hey, you want to come on an all-expense paid trip to Mexico? And you don't even think about it. Your whole body is like so enrolled on the yes. And then, someone's like, oh, you want to come on an all-expense paid trip to Mexico? It has to be in these days. You're going to need to buy your flights. You're going to do this. And then that full-bodied yes kind of comes like a contraction. And then you're like, I'm not so sure. Or our partner's like, hey, babe, can you help me with this chore this weekend? Or do you want to go to this party? and we say yes to all these things we think we should. And so as an experiment, if you just start to notice where are your yeses coming from and what's actually truly a 10 versus what's a 6 or what's a 7, I found when you actually say no, you start then building a muscle that basically says, from an alignment perspective, yeah, I'm actually going to be a no to these other things. And when you work that alignment muscle, what starts to show up is more aligned 10s rather than a whole plethora and seas of like 6s and 7s. Mm-hmm. And so that was a huge turning point for me in my journey and really what I live my life by, consistently since. And it's such a simple concept, but I can't even tell you, like even, in South Africa, maybe about 8 months ago, still I'm like hosted our Unconventional Life event on a safari, staying in this gorgeous beach villa in Cape Town. From the outside, it looks like I'm living my 10. And then I checked in with myself, listed everything I'm doing in my life. And once again, only 2 things that were like an 11 was like CrossFit and performing and speaking, yet I'm only doing them 10% of my time. And I'm like living for this one day, someday life of being happy. Yet if I really tell the truth to what is actually happening in the moment now, it's actually vastly different. And so the nuances of those 2 things, really creating a space for a no such that you can find that full-bodied yes, and then really telling the truth on like all the stuff you're doing in your life, give it a rank on a 1 to 10. Where does it land? And then by proxy of saying no, you actually start to get to build that muscle for those aligned 10s. So.
The alignment muscle. I have a feeling, Jules, that someone is hearing this at the exact right time because often, and like totally for me too, like you just gave, even at every level of quote unquote success, we have to check in because even as entrepreneurs, I find myself and clients, we get out of the 9 to 5. Okay, you can quit your job, you can earn money online. We know that. But then it's like we keep recreating these boxes and we think we have to even be an entrepreneur in a certain way, or we have to, the shoulds and the yeses, they present themselves no matter what container or offer or lifestyle you've created. Before the show, I was telling you, I've been traveling for almost a year because I thought that was, like the digital nomad dream. Like every millennial entrepreneur just wanted to be in their backpack, and like I did it. And like when I checked in way too late, I did it for almost a year. Didn't totally feel right. And then finally it was like, that come to like, I just need to stop everything. And when I did that, it was like, nope, this is not a heck yes for me. So I think that we need to be way more honest and transparent. You don't need to go gram about it. But as entrepreneurs, like, is this actually your dream life? Like, what compromises are you making, and what do you need to stop, and where are the number 10s for you? So thank you. I think that is so important for a lot of people to hear right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also comes down to like, a lot of times when you listen to podcasts or when I listen to podcasts, there's like something we're either wanting, whether it's like, maybe you're listening to this right now and it's like wanting this or certain type of inspiration or wanting a permission or wanting whatever it is. But I like have found in my own life when I don't slow down to like, okay, what's happening in this moment? Like, where's my breath? Can I feel my body? Like, what do I notice here? Like that perpetuation of this, like one day, someday, even when you get the things that you think you want to have, like if you don't create that slow down muscle for you to feel your success and for you to feel your momentary hits of joy rather than your perceived joy, like that doesn't like sync up at a certain level. And so I find cultivating that no matter where you are, like that's something you could cultivate right now. And if anything, I think actually having had so much success at a younger age, like it's been harder for me to realize and actually feel like joy from like little things. And that's actually been more of where my work is now, of like slowing down, like finding more of an inner circle, finding more of who I am and what actually has me feeling excitement or me feeling fulfillment rather than this perceived notion of that. And so anyways, it's just been kind of an opposite thing to kind of navigate. And so grateful for that lesson as well.
Yeah, what a wise dad. How about you just do nothing? How about you just heal?
Totally.
Yeah. Awesome. So I think that is huge. And I hope people are, definitely hearing that loud and clear, that this sort of adrenaline fatigue or this success addiction, it's only going to become louder. Like you said, like the more success you have and the longer you are an entrepreneur, the little things become less and less appreciated, just kind of as a byproduct of like being on to the next thing and do more and I can help more people. But yes, like right now, figure out a way to add those pauses into your everyday, because otherwise we will miss so much of it. So you didn't just take 60 days. I mean, the 60 days did something for you, and you've, returned to this, 10, this alignment muscle, asking yourself, what's a heck yes in my life right now? But you have been finding things. And I know right now your business model has lots of components. And a question I often get from people is like, okay, look, I know I can be an entrepreneur. I know I can earn money online, but I want to scale in a way that feels good. And so I'm curious what your experience has been with that.
I think it's
yeah, go for it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, no, gosh. Yeah. Like adding, like the scalability thing is such an interesting question because, so like where I've been the last few years, we've been talking about this before we started, I was writing for Forbes for a while, ended up launching, the Unconventional Life podcast. Had literally no blogging experience when I started. I remember like being in Iceland outside of the hot springs, hitting send on my first ever podcast and blog post, like literally having my then boyfriend copywriter review everything because I couldn't spell. My grammar was totally terrible. And I was just like, I don't know how this is happening. One of those like, oh shit moments. But from there, it grew, and Unconventional Life became like a top ranked podcast. We've reached millions of different people in over 75 different countries. And about 8 months after that, I ended up having this crazy dream, like a literal dream, where I was creating all this content and I had no idea why. And I think there's something important like to highlight, and coming back to this alignment muscle, how I operate in business and how I make decisions is literally I wait to get downloads. I wait to get pings. And often we have so much noise in our environment, whether it's, in our physical bodies from like the food we eat or alcohol or substances or things like that, just to like our, environment of what do our friends say and what do our parents say or what do our significant others say. And so I operate on these like downloads. And, for me, I literally had this dream and I saw 30 people gathering. And this was like 8 months after producing content, having no idea why I was producing content, with just this innate gut reason. And some of you might relate to this, like you're doing something and you're waiting for it to return and you've been at it for a while and you're like, where is the result? Like, where is the light at the end of the tunnel? Yet there's still something that's calling you to do it. And that's at least how it was for me at that point. And, I was their first vision for the first Unconventional Life event. And, I didn't know how to even do an event at the time. I kind of thought I was crazy to even consider doing an event. I didn't have much of an audience. I definitely didn't have an email list. I had a podcast and a blog, but I didn't really know how those two things like related together. And I ended up finding, a few friends and shared the vision with them. And lo and behold, we created our first event, which we sold out in about 7 weeks. And these Unconventional Life events were born. And since then, we've done like 6 different events. And Inc.'s ranked us as the top event for entrepreneurs to attend. And it's been this whole thing. But through the process of that, like each step of the way, I keep asking myself, and even like we just did our largest event yet in Bali. And it's like, from a conventional perspective, it's like do more events, scale, add more people, add this offering, add that. Yet when I keep checking in with myself, it's like this thing wants to stay small. And not only that, my same drive to just like put myself on public stage and like be available for the masses. Like if I tell the truth, I'm actually pretty introverted and I prefer quiet and stillness. And I don't like to be on that much, even though like all of my friends are like, you have this huge community and like, why don't you, scale it in this way? But it's like, that doesn't actually work for me, even though that's the model. And this is, I think, a really important point is that there's so many models that people are sharing all the time. But if those models aren't the models for you, then it just doesn't work. And I think this comes to scalability as well. And so ironically enough, we did this event, and instead of doing 2 huge events this year, like we've got an event for only 30 people in Patagonia, which will be our May event. And we've got a larger one coming up in Madagascar in November. It's just like, I decided I wanted to take 7 people on a 9-month journey with me. And so I decided for the first time ever to launch a 9-month immersive mastermind program. And I even said to myself, I'm like, 9 months, that's a ton of time to work with people. But I don't actually like the turnover of different coaching clients. I don't like the turnover of new people and energy coming into my space all the time. So when I got clear on what I really wanted, I put that out there. And then I sold, that program. And that ended up being a $200,000 offering. That got sold literally in a matter of like 8 days because I've built this community. And so it's like literally once you have a certain community and you have a certain alignment with it, like scaling doesn't have to look like one trajectory. Like it's like, boom, there's another big income stream that just got added to my business, but it got added in a way that actually like is aligned and actually matches my values more. And I think this is, often I see so many people, even people that I work with, when they're trying to put together their offerings, they're looking at finding their avatar and interviewing them and understanding what they want, and then they release a thing. I almost say, get really clear on you, get really clear on what feels good in you. And not only that, like even the delivery of that, like I was like, I only want to coach people once a month. I don't want to coach people 4 times a month. So they only get one one-on-one call. And then there's like 2 group calls, like getting really clear on that. And then when that 10 out of 10 alignment is present in you, that's when you sell at offers. And I haven't even allowed people to register into our upcoming events. Even though I have so many people that want to pay and register, it hasn't felt aligned for me to announce it yet. Totally backwards business strategy from a conventional perspective. But I know that when I fully announce those events open for registration, for example, that that alignment will be present in me in such that it will create that alignment out there, in such that it will make that offer sell out, but only at that exact time. And that's the other component in this as well. And scaling is there's no urgency. And I know it can feel like you want to make things happen as of yesterday, but when you really tune into that perfect time and not a moment too soon, and how I feel that in my own system is when I get it's like when a vision isn't totally clear, you have the nuts and bolts and pieces of the vision, but something feels missing. Often we force ourselves into making decisions or just to set a launch date and just to make it happen or just to hit this goal because that's what we should do. But if you organically let your own compass dictate that, and then you launch that thing at just that moment, I find it actually leads more of its own agenda. That intelligence leads more of its own agenda. And so that's just a way that I live my life and how I've used scaling and diversifying. And the last piece I want to say on it is the power of building a really great fishing pond. I've spent so much time having Unconventional Life be like my baby. I wanted to start this whole thing because I wanted to tell more stories like you do on this podcast of more people that were following non-traditional paths and doing stuff differently. Because when I was in 2011 and graduating with the feathers and my dad, there was nobody to follow. There was nobody's stories that I could say, well, that person did it, so therefore I can do it. And so that became my goal, was to create this massive fishing pond called my Unconventional Life community of value and create these podcasts and not do sponsorships and not do a bunch of affiliate offers and not do a bunch of advertising, and then slowly check in each step of the way such that I could keep building as I've gone. And so just another piece to add in there as well is that I do think your own internal compass, that own intelligence that we hear in ourselves, whether you call it intuition or instinct, it does have a lot of innate value, and we all have a different compass. And so the more you get to know your own unique operating system, the more you'll find what that scalability or diversification looks like for you. And then ultimately, the more success you'll have, on a quantum scale, you can jump timelines because you are using alignment as your launch pad.
Yeah, we're not going to find the blueprint in a book or in another webinar. And I think that a lot of marketing by business coaches and authors has taught us as entrepreneurs. It's okay, now I have to write the book. Okay, now I have to speak. Now I have to monetize my Instagram. Like there's this step-by-step thing. And I think because so many people have had success doing that and they want to turn around and say, oh, this is how I did it. We think that we just need to follow the leader when really we need to follow our own intuition. So look for those downloads in your life. Slow down enough so that you can see the vision of what you are supposed to be doing. Because something that I wanted to call out about what you just talked to us about, is that it wasn't about a number, right? Okay, I need to make 200 grand this month and now I'm going to backwards engineer it, right? That really heady way of solving business questions, but rather just like, no, like I need to do stuff that feels good because that's the only thing that's going to have longevity for me. So look inside, slow down, same principles, said a different way, but so powerful.
Yeah, totally. And, on the last piece of feeling, like I think so much of us are in the game of, and I don't know if this is true for you as well, but just being transformative facilitators. Like we just want to facilitate transformation, whether it's in podcasts or whether it's with your coaching clients or whether it's, like transformation, also like impact as well. And I find the best way to actually do that is through feeling. Like you will probably not remember everything I say on this podcast, but you'll remember how you felt after. And I think when you stay true to those principles, that's really where that impact and ultimately that enrollment happens, where people do become a yes to your vision more organically. And then ultimately that registration, which then reflects the numbers and, so on and so forth there.
I feel you. Yes. Okay, Jules, you are already giving us so many nuggets I know people can take and run with and start integrating. But I want to shift gears into a little pop quiz. I just have 3 last questions and a kind of rapid fire round. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So like I said, you've already given us some ideas, but just directly, what is one thing that listeners can do today to get closer to their dream life?
Yes. So the biggest thing I find is most people don't understand who you are and what you're actually doing, even though you think most people know who you are and what you're actually doing. So I would literally interview 5 people that are in your network. You can even put this up on Facebook and just literally ask, when you think of me, what are the words that come to mind? Or who do you think I am? And if someone's like, I think you're a coach that kind of helps people with their path and their purpose, like that doesn't keep you top of mind. So getting very specific and very known, such as like I'm a coach that helps people go from success to stress, for example, very concrete. Getting really known in that way makes a massive difference so that when people are looking for someone, they're like, oh, do you know someone that can help with this? Boom, you instantly become top of mind. So interview 5 people, ask them when they think of you what comes to mind, and literally see if you can sync up with who you are with what you are being perceived out there. And it makes a massive difference in terms of the amount of exposure that you get.
Yes. What do you think of when you think of me? Super powerful. Second question is, what is a tangible resource? Like if you could give a gift to every listener, what would it be?
Great question. So I would say, oh man, there's so many things here. For some reason, the book, The War of Art, have you read it before?
No, I haven't even heard of it. Tell us more.
Okay, so The War of Art, I would read that book. It basically talks about every creator's journey and the relationship to resistance. It's massively powerful, especially when you have something that's being burst through you, which my hunch is if you're listening to this, you're not just like following like a certain path and executing, you're actually allowing your vision to come through you. So when you're working with those nuances of your own creativity, understanding how resistance lives, understanding how action lives, like it really blew my lid off a few years ago, and I still go back to it in terms of giving me that context for being with this process, because it's a new process us as millennials are pioneering. Even if you're not a millennial, like it's a new era of creating in a certain way in this like more unconventional way. So that book I feel like really gives some practical context and helpfulness in that journey.
Awesome. If only I had that book when I was graduating college and trying to teach my dad what I was doing.
Totally.
But like you said, it's that roller coaster and like having those tools to come up. Yeah. Okay. Amazing. I have it written down. I won't take us on that tangent right now. Well, Jules, the last question is, where can people stay connected with you and learn more about what you're doing and maybe even listen to your music?
So if you love podcasts, which I imagine you do if you're listening to this podcast, you can search Unconventional Life in iTunes. We've got almost 200 different episodes of, we interview professional athletes to high-profile entrepreneurs to Grammy Award-winning musicians to a whole genre of how people follow their own non-traditional path. So you can check it out there. Also, if you're someone that is craving for community and you feel like a lone wolf or not everyone totally gets you, welcome home. That is very much the Unconventional Life community, especially people that have hit a certain level of success and are really looking to incorporate more of success beyond just career, but also relationships and purpose and, alignment and all those other things. So we do these 5-day events in exotic places all over the world. Like I said, this year we've got Patagonia coming up in March, and Madagascar coming up in November. Patagonia is in May. So if you want to learn more about our business accelerators and just more about like getting some in-time, real-time person connection, you can check that out. And our website's unconventionallifeshow.com. And then lastly, as I said, I'm an artist. And so what I'm doing with the music piece of my journey is really taking these concepts. Like I found one of the fastest ways to impact people for me is as soon as I start strumming my ukulele and singing. And so for me, my music, I make up full songs on the fly, like literally channel full spoken word pieces. It's just transmission coming through. And so if, you're looking for inspiration in that way and just like, some conscious music, you can check out JulesSchroeder.com. I have 2 new albums that are on their way out this year, and would love to stay connected and involved. And especially if you're someone that's following this path, whether you call it the unconventional path or really like creating your own dream life, like we are exceptions to the rules right now. And in a lot of ways, it's the wild, wild west out here. And we are like actively, when I think about our kids or our kids, like we're paving the way in real time. And there's no manual for it. And so I just want to acknowledge each one of you for, like, if you've made it this far in this episode, just to acknowledge yourself, because it really takes something to show up and to like do the work. And it's way easier to not do the work. And the fact that you are doing it, it's massive and not going unnoticed. And so just acknowledging that as well. And feel free to reach out if something about this connects with you. Check us out. And, it's great to be here with all of you.
A beautiful life, an unconventional life, a dream life. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jules. I know folks will be excited to check out everything that you're up to and definitely get connected with you. So friends, yes, we're going to wrap up this episode, but we'll be back next week with another inspiring guest that will help you make your dream life your real life.
You've been learning how to make your dream life your real life with Hannah Hermanson. To get the resources mentioned on today's show and to listen to past episodes, visit www.dreamlifeisreallife.com.